YouTube family, welcome back to our channel Studying Geek. Today we are going to study history chapter Age of Industrialization. So let's begin. Industrialization is the period of social and economic change that transforms a human group from an agrarian society into an industrial society. It refers to large-scale introduction of manufacturing into a society. In 1900, a popular music publisher E.T. Paul produced a music book that had a picture on the cover page announcing the dawn of the century. At the center of the picture is a goddess-like figure, the angle of progress, bearing the flag of the new century. She is gently perched on a wheel with wings, symbolizing time. Her flight is taking her into the future. Floating about, behind her, are the signs of progress: railway, camera, machines, printing press and factory. This picture appeared on the Age of a Trade magazine over 100 years ago, glorifying machines and technology. It shows two magicians. The one at the top, Aladdin from the Orient, who built a beautiful palace with his magic lamp. The one at the bottom, modern mechanic, who with his modern tools weaves a new magic, built bridges, ships, tower and high-rise building. Aladdin is shown as representing the East and the past. The mechanic stands for the West and modernity. These images offer us a triumphant account of the modern world. Within this account, the modern world is associated with rapid technological change and innovations, machines and factories, railways and steamships. The history of industrialization thus becomes simply a story of development, and the modern age appears as a wonderful time of technological progress. 1. Before the Industrial Revolution, all too often we associate industrialization with the growth of factory industry. When we talk of industrial workers, we mean factory workers. When we talk of industrial production, we refer to factory production. There is a problem with such ideas. Why? Even before factories began to dot the landscape in England and Europe, there was large-scale industrial production for an international market. This was not based on factories. Many historians now refer to this phase of industrialization as proto-industrialization. Merchants moved to countryside in 17th to 18th centuries. Merchants from the towns in Europe began moving to the countryside, supplying money to peasants and artisans, persuading them to produce for an international market. Reasons of moving to countryside: 1. With the expansion of world trade and the acquisition of colonies, the demand for goods began growing. 2. But merchants could not expand production within town. 3. Because here urban crafts and trade guilds were powerful. These were associations of producers that trained craftspeople. 4. The association maintained control over production, regulated competition and prices, and restrictions the entry of new people into the trade. Rulers granted different guilds the monopoly right to produce and trade in specific products. Consequences: it was therefore difficult for new merchants to set up business in towns. So they turned to the countryside. Impact of merchants moving to countryside. In the countryside, poor peasants and artisans began working for merchants. Cottagers and poor peasants, who had earlier depended on common lands for their survival, had to now look for alternative sources of income. Problem: many had tiny plots of lands which could not provide work for all members of the household. So, when merchants come around and offered advances to produce goods for them, peasants' households eagerly agreed. Advantages for merchants: 1. Now they could remain in the country and continue to cultivate their small plots. 2. Income from proto-industrial production supplemented their shrinking income from cultivation. 3. It also allowed them a fuller use of their family labor resources. Close relationship BW towns and countryside. Merchants were based in towns, but the work was done mostly in the countryside. A merchant clothier in England purchased wool from a wool stapler and carried it to the spinners. The yarn, thread, that was spun was taken in subsequent stages of production to weavers, fullers, and then to dyers. The finishing was done in London before the export merchants sold the cloth in the international market. Did you know? London came to be known as finishing center. Summary: This proto-industrial system was thus part of a network of commercial exchanges. It was controlled by merchants and the goods were produced by producers working within their family firms, not in factories. At each stage of production 20 to 25 workers were employed by each merchant. Coming of industries in England. The earliest factories in England come up by the 1730s. But it was only in the late 18th century that the number of factories multiplied. The first symbol of this new era was cotton. Its production boomed in the late 19th century. In 1760, Britain was importing 2.5 million pounds of raw cotton to feed its cotton industry. By 1787, this import soared to 22 million pounds. This increase was linked to a number of changes within the process of production. Inventions in 18th century increased the efficiency of each step of the production process, carding, twisting and spinning and rolling. Enhanced the output per worker, enabling each worker to produce more, and they made possible the production of stranger threads and yarns. Then Richard Arkwright created the cotton mill. Costly new machine could be purchased, set up and maintained in the mill. All processes were brought together under one roof and management within the mill. This allowed a more careful supervision over the production process, a watch over quality, and the regulation of labor. In the early 19th century, factories increasingly become an intimate part of the English landscape. They concentrated their attention on the mills, almost forgetting the bylines and the workshops where production still continued. The pace of industrial change. 1. The most dynamic industries in Britain were clearly cotton and metals. Growing at a rapid pace, cotton was the leading sector in the first phase of industrialization. After that, the iron and steel industry led the way. With the expansion of railways in England, the demand for iron and steel increased rapidly. By 1873, Britain was exporting iron and steel worth about 77 million pounds, double the value of its cotton export. 2. New industries could not easily displace traditional industries. Even at the end of 19th century, less than 20% of total workforce was employed in technologically advanced industrial sector. Textiles was a dynamic sector, but a large portion of the output was produced not within factories, but outside, within domestic units. 3. The pace of change in the traditional industries was not set by steam-powered cotton or metal industries, but they did not remain entirely stagnant either. Seemingly ordinary and small innovations were the basis of growth in many non-mechanized sectors such as food processing, building, pottery, glasswork, tanning, furniture making, and production of implements. 4. Technological changes occurred slowly. They did not spread dramatically across the industrial landscape. New technology was expensive. Merchants and industrialists were cautious about using it. The machines often broke down and repair was costly. They were not as effective as their inventors and manufacturers claimed. Case of the steam engine. In 1781, James Watt improved the steam engine and patented the new engine. His industrialist friend Matthew Boulton manufactured the new model. But for years he could find no buyers. At the beginning of the 19th century, there were no more than 321 steam engines all over England. Steam engines were not used in any of the other industries till much later in the century. So even the most powerful new technology that enhanced the production of labor manifold was slow to be accepted by industrialists. Summary. Historians have recognized that the typical worker in the mid-19th century was not a mechanic operator but the traditional craftsperson and labor. So if you liked the 1 cent part of the chapter, Age of Industrialization, you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel Studging Geek and press the bell icon to get notified with our new video. Thank you.